Good day, my beautiful people. How is it going? It's Plain Tea, and we're back with episode 2. My name's Nimesh, and because it's relevant to the topic that we're talking about today, I'm currently in Tokyo, Japan, having graduated university in Japan in April of 2020.
How long have you been there, Himesh?
I've been here since 2016.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
I'm Malinka. I started in Sri Lanka. That's about it.
Okay, I'm Vinra. Sorry about that.
You okay, Vinra?
I'm all right.
Okay, cool.
I think,
Good to know, good
hoping
to
I'd be. I'm in Sri Lanka as well. Also, for our own purposes, we are hoping the Australian government will sponsor us like sometime down the line. We are obliged to make a statement that you're not allowed to like go to Australia by boat, unlike some people. Hivi, go on. You.
I didn't go by boat, but so my name's Hivi, and I live in Australia. I studied in Australia. I started in 2016. I did 1 year in Sri Lanka, and then I transited here. So coming to the topic, what's for tea today, boys?
Right. While it definitely has its rewards, we are gonna dive face first into the realities of studying abroad. In case someone was under the impression that it's all rainbows, automatic toilets, and cute Asian women. I'm in Japan, but don't blame me.
I think the whole point is look like there's a big glorification to actually like going abroad and pursuing your tertiary education, right? It's the same principle behind incentivizing people to actually go to war. There's a big glorification aspect to this, and what people actually need to realize, and that's the whole point of like what we are trying to do at the end of the day, is that look, going abroad has its positive aspects. Like for example, the exposure might be great, the pay might be great, the kind of like experiences that you actually like go through at the end of the day might be great, but it also comes with certain prices. For example, your expenses might be so much more. It's not a magical land unless unless you put in the effort that's actually required. So, and what we believe, like the four of us collectively believe, is that 99% of the time it's the hustle that you actually put into it, right? So if not for that effort, you're not actually going to make it. And like I think we're about to get real about like the whole subject, so that's what we really want to get into.
Yeah, that's what we do. We talk about real issues. And hopefully we create a platform for everybody, an opportunity for everybody to talk about these things if you refrain from talking about issues like this.
Absolutely. So I think like to a great extent, like before we get into it, the first thing about actually like moving abroad and pursuing your tertiary education is there's a big preparatory aspect that goes into it, like the preparation from this logistics to the finances, everything. And I think one should be actually made aware of it like initially.
Yeah. So just a small thing. Vindu, you mentioned that 99% of the time it's the hustle that matters. So hustle matters wherever you are, regardless of whether you're here or somewhere. But the thing is, no one really talks about the hustle when they go abroad. They just tend to just talk about all the good stuff. So we are here to talk about both the good things and the bad things, so that you know what you're up against if you're actually planning on studying abroad, right? So the biggest thing that you need to do is to prepare properly, right? So a lot of people are under the assumption that only the university and what you're studying actually matters. But before that, you need to decide mainly like which country should you go to and which year should you go and study. Especially these days with COVID, you can't really go right now itself. Like you need to wait a bit, and you need to see the situation of the country as well. And I believe that in the future, once COVID kind of like dies down a bit, there will be more opportunities for anyone looking to go abroad, because universities will be opening up a lot more. They'll want to get more students, right? And the other thing is the education. Obviously, you need to decide what to study. You need to decide which university in that particular country that you need to study, and you need to kind of like understand whether you have that same option here as well, whether the same degree or the same qualification is available in Sri Lanka, and what makes that qualification abroad better than the alternative in Sri Lanka. So you need to have that balance as well. And the other things being that you need to decide on your living situation, like where you're going to live, whether it's on campus or off campus, whether it's going to be with your relatives, and certain things like insurance and part-time jobs, things like that. Part-time jobs, I think, will come later once you actually go there, but that's also something that you need to keep your mind on. And combining all of these, you need to decide whether the ROI is worth it. You need to decide whether that investment is worth it, because at the end of the day, you're spending millions and millions of rupees
Yeah.
to go and study abroad, right? So you need to decide how long will it take for me to actually generate this income back, and whether it's the best option for you in the long run. Because obviously, most people who are actually thinking of going abroad go abroad for the fact that they want to like kind of settle down there, right? So you need to decide on
Yeah.
whether it's actually worth your time, your effort, your money, and everything.
Also,
That's true. Like, right, like I think like there's a big component of like research that goes into it. Like, so
Oh,
like Malinka said,
yeah.
I think you need to really research into whether this is actually going to be worth it. The ROI is really important. For example, if you're getting super real about like these things, I think one thing that's proven like through trial and error, like for them, Matt, is the fact that Sri Lankan culture is such that like our parents will actually spend anything, everything for the child's education. You, if you're getting real, like super real about this, you get like parents pawning of their jewelry, mortgaging their property. Sometimes, like for people who can't like afford everything out there, like going through all these means to make sure that their children get the best education out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
also
very
continuing on that.
important
Yeah.
that
So
you like.
as because it's very important, you need to have a contingency plan for everything. Like let's say your first pick was Australia, but maybe it doesn't come through. So you need to have maybe Canada or maybe America. Everything needs to have a contingency plan. You have to have a backup university. You have to have a backup place to go because you are in a whole different environment. If things go bad, you need to have a secondary plan to stay somewhere, or you need to have a backup plan to find food or friends.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
important.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
True, true. Exactly. So I think it's very important you take a very holistic approach to this whole thing where you cover all aspects, like especially just before you depart to a foreign country in order to pursue your education, just because people think, oh, this is something amazing that you ought to do. But I think before we get into it, there's like, a lot of other things that goes into it. Like if you're going to get super real about it, like the departure, like the moment of realization. I think Mashi could actually, like Nimesh could actually relate to it quite a bit. Nimesh, what
Yeah.
was it like, especially when you decided to actually move to Japan? What did it feel like at that very moment when you realized, okay, you're leaving everything behind in order to pursue a better future for yourself, but you're also leaving a lot of things behind? What
Yeah,
did you feel
leaving
like?
aside the alcohol that they serve at the in the airport.
Keep
um.
short.
Yeah, but no, 100%, 100%. Because I remember, so obviously up until the very last minute, or up until a couple of days before you were actually about to take off, I think it didn't really hit me because you were busy running to Arpico, buying stuff that you needed to go. Yeah.
It's like a race.
Arpico,
Like
Arpico
it's
is
like
not
it starts
sponsoring us,
and
by the
then
way. Arpico is
please
not
sponsor
sponsoring us.
yeah, no,
Hopefully,
they're
some
not.
point.
Please,
Yeah, yeah.
please do,
at
please
some
do
point.
at some
Yeah,
point.
at some point.
But yeah, yeah. So I remember running to Arpico, to Cargill's, trying to buy stuff, trying to do everything that I needed to do before I was actually ready to leave. But I remember a couple of days back, it really hit me, and I remember writing a letter to my mom, saying, I understand that, because my mom and I were really really close. She was my support system, and I was hers. And I remember writing a letter saying, I acknowledge the sacrifice that you're making while when I'm going away. I won't be here for a long period of time, and I'm gonna make sure that at the end of the day you're gonna be proud of me. It's all gonna be worth it. And to this day she holds on to that letter and she talks about it all the time. Yeah, so that's I think so. 2 days before I actually was about to leave was when it properly hit me. Um, but then the day I was about to leave, I think I remember Malinka and Vinura coming to my house, which really helped me,
I'm
cheer
sorry,
up
boys.
and
I
all of
was
that.
already out of the country. Like
Yeah,
I
no
would
worries,
be
buddy,
like,
no worries, no worries. But yeah, you boys have been with me the entire time from literally the day I was about to leave. But um, again, I didn't really think it didn't really hit me again until I was on the flight when I remember thankfully my dad was next to me, because he came to drop me off. But I remember being on the flight and thinking, I'm leaving back behind my mom and my brother and the rest of my family. Um, and I remember breaking down and crying for about good 6 hours until
So the whole
I
flight.
was in. Pretty much, because I didn't know when I was going to be able to come back and see my mom, and because she was my support system, as I said before, and I was hers, and it really got to me. So yeah,
Honestly, I don't think that could have been easy, and
certainly wasn't, mate.
like honestly, it's such a um inspiring or like a very brave thing to like actually go abroad and study and to like leave this kind of support system behind.
Yeah, yeah,
So apart from that, let's actually talk about like a positive aspect before we get super real about the kind of things people barely spill the tea on, right? About this. Let's talk about the positive university experience that you guys have actually had, like by going abroad, to Australia, to Japan. What like have you guys really realized or like learned from it?
Positive university experience. So it's the universities are not exactly the same as Sri Lanka. I mean, there are facilities; they're kind of the same, but let's say even the computer lab itself, they've got like a massive computer lab with just Macs on there, and maybe just like anything you need is like that's the
We
opportunity.
never get that shit here.
But it's like this, like when you come to Australia or Japan, maybe the opportunities are endless. Like
yeah.
you'd see someone doing creative arts or something like uh, studio management or something like that, and you're like, what's the career opportunities? The things that you've never heard of, like,
Yeah,
and there
100%.
is a job for everything. Like that's what I'm like. It's just crazy. Like you wouldn't expect that many avenues to
Yeah.
be present for people. Because in
So the
Sri
college,
Lanka, we talk about mainly just the like 4 or 5 main occupations. You are either a doctor, an engineer, a
A
lawyer, or an
lawyer
accountant. And two of them
or
are
a,
right here. I'm an accountant, and that's a lawyer. So,
or a digital marketer.
oh,
or a
digital
digital.
marketer, one of those. Yeah.
So
So
yeah, I guess even like the from the qualifications aspect, like you get like you mentioned, like for every you have a job for everything. So every qualification that you do, you have a job. And another thing that I've noticed is that Hivi, I think you used to get involved in like a lot of societies within the uni itself.
yeah. So because I was doing Interact in Sri Lanka, and then I came here, and I'm like, what's the best thing I can join? I actually joined the dodgeball club, not the dodgeball. What's it called? Dodgeball? Yeah, dodgeball. Yeah,
It is.
it is the
Yeah, I mean,
dodgeball
like the
club.
We would
dodgeball.
know.
And
We would
I
know.
mean,
No,
the Deek in
Is
dodgeball
it where
club.
you dodge balls?
Yes, basically explains the whole
so
scenario
yeah,
if you
Friday
don't
night
know the name.
basically.
Ah, so okay.
And then
Okay,
also
Sherlock.
they have like community programs, like they have movie nights, and you can join the student association, and they'll direct you into different places that you have to go to. Like let's
Right,
say it's your
right.
stamp collecting club, or it might be something cooler. Like you'd
But you're
have
saying stamp collecting isn't cool, mate.
no, it's definitely cool because I have like a massive
You
collection.
have that book, I think, my stamp book.
Yeah, but also they've got like extracurricular, as in you people would from societies would go out on Thursday nights would be like the night that they go out.
Poetry night
They,
and all
yes,
that.
and it'd be trivia night some nights. It'd be
Yeah,
What
amazing.
about you,
sounds
Nimesh?
fun.
What
Sounds
about
fun.
your experience there?
Yeah. I don't have a lot to add to this because I've just shithoused my way through university and haven't used most of the facilities that were there. But when I did have the opportunity, I think the lecture rooms were amazing, and like the online facilities where you could access the lectures when you wanted to revise, and the material that you could check anything online, which is something that I didn't have because before I came to Japan, I was studying at RI, so I could compare the two, and the facilities, even though I didn't use a lot of it, the computers, the online databases that were available for research, if one were to actually make use of them, the opportunities that they could have gotten through them were endless.
Yeah, so basically you had like access to a lot of
Infinite knowledge.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
infinite
yes,
knowledge.
yes.
And yeah, so another thing, talking when you're talking about the university experience, another aspect is the whole environmental change that you go through once you go abroad, right? Because obviously even if you go to study, you still live in that particular environment, right? So when you go to like a fresh environment, it's important that you don't kind of like isolate yourself, right? You need to make sure that you kind of build your support system there, because once you leave your support system here, it's difficult to get their help on certain things that you might face
Yeah,
in that foreign country, right? So it's important that you build friends, you build friendships, you build connections, you network, and you kind of build a support system there, and kind of like like build like established roots there, right? Another thing is that the language barrier that you have to face, because I don't think Hivi
Nah, not
has a lot of
really.
experience in
Not
that. Yeah.
necessarily. Yeah.
But for Nimesh, I don't know whether you studied Japanese here or whether you went there and studied Japanese.
I did a little bit, but I couldn't. It wasn't much. When I
Anime
went
doesn't
there, I
count.
think
Yeah.
Anime doesn't count.
I know
no,
a bit because of anime.
yeah.
Bio.
No, I
That's
think the stuff.
Naruto.
I think the stuff that I learned in Sri Lanka for about 3 to 4 months, I think they taught it in the first class and finished it off. So it
Yeah.
wasn't much. It wasn't much, but
Yeah.
it was extremely difficult because the good thing about this university was 50% of the people were foreigners who spoke really good English, and the rest were Japanese.
Who also spoke English. Some people.
Yes. More for the most part, yes.
Yeah, it's not just about the university at the end of the day. It's like day-to-day things as well. Like
Exactly.
you go to like a convenience store, they might not speak in English, right? So that's the
Yeah.
thing. That's the language barrier that I want to talk about, because at the end of the day, you kind of like need to learn the language of another country from
Yeah.
scratch, right? So that might have kind of like made you feel like an outsider, because at the end of the day, the communication aspect is not really there. So that kind of, I'm guessing that might have made you feel like an outsider there.
It did because everybody, like most of the people, they were Japanese, right? And I was like a brown little kid from Sri Lanka, and without a lot of friends who were trying to make it in Japan. And so basically, I remember in the dorms, like the best way people communicated and connected were over alcohol or drinking parties, which is not something that I did before I went to Japan.
Sake time.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not saying I don't enjoy it. I'm not being, I'm not saying that. But when I first went there and I wasn't really into it, I still had to do it because that was the only time I got to spend. That was the only opportunity I had to spend.
Only time you got to
Exactly.
socialize with someone.
Exactly,
You're not
because
promoting alcohol at
everybody
any
got
time.
into
No.
no. But everybody got into their own cliques. Everybody got into their own group. So if I wasn't in one, I wasn't gonna have friends, and that
That's true.
scared the shit out of me.
Making
Right?
friends as adults is very hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's true.
So I did feel like an outsider, but to be very honest, I had a very special person already with me in Japan, so it really helped. But they're not with us. They're not with us at all times, and you have to have a social life outside of that, and which is a big challenge because I had left my friends, my family, and everybody in Sri Lanka. So it did force me into things that I didn't, not necessarily force, but I had to take steps that I wouldn't usually take to make friends.
So basically, you had to move out of your comfort zone, obviously. So that
Yes.
kind of helped you in settling down. And another thing, when you talk about like the different cultures, is that the culture shock that you should have to go through, because when you move to a different country, you kind of have to get used to a whole different set of kind of like unspoken rules, like norms, societal norms, and things like that. Like it could be like freaking boy, like you're used to having like one guaranteed day off a month, and you don't kind of don't have it from once you move there. It could be things like that.
I remember when I was in my apartment, I would look at the sky and it would be like a full freaking moon. I was like, shit, I would have had a holiday if I was in Sri Lanka.
That is true, because there's like so much less public holidays here.
Yeah, like it could be like certain things like festivals, and could be things like even it comes to food, right? Because you're used to eating rice and curry here, and then when you go there, maybe I don't know, you
thank goodness that Melbourne as a community has so many Sri Lankans that you have just another Sri Lankan shop just around the corner. So you could go get some paripu and rice and maybe pull sambal if you're lucky, if they have it and already not run out of it.
Yeah, just lay off the kangaroos for like as long as you can.
Kangaroo as a meat is amazing. It's one of the leanest meat you'll ever have.
Okay,
good for you, right? Good for you.
Cool.
Anyway, but to add to Malinka's point, culture shock. I remember, so when I was studying at RI, I mean, I could be 15 minutes late to lectures, 20 minutes late to lectures. Nobody really cared. But in Japan, in my classes, attendance was taken to make sure that we all came to university and studied and all of that for our own benefit. And you had to be there on time, and otherwise you'd miss your attendance points.
Yeah, so, I mean that is also at the end of the day kind of like your responsibility also.
Oh, yeah.
You're spending your parents' money, and then
that's I think most of us when we're young, I mean, it's so easy to just fool around, right? So I think the university, exactly. Exactly. And even the buses, man. Like if it said it was coming at 9:37, it came at 9:37. You couldn't be a minute late or a minute
That
early.
was the craziest thing I've noticed too, because even Google Maps itself has like the timing of the bus, and it will
Yeah.
be there 1 or 2 minutes, one or plus or minus 1 minute, and you
Yeah.
could see the bus come in when it's coming on the time. And in Sri Lanka, you just miss a bus and it's like, oh, is it coming in 30 minutes or 1 hour? You never know. It's like a lottery.
Hey,
It
I've,
happens
I've
to
taken the
like,
154 so many times where the guy at the depot told me, oh yeah, it will be here in 10 minutes. Yeah, it did.
good for
Oh,
you.
so
Good
it
for
is
you.
pretty accurate then. Sri Lanka's up to date,
Oh,
man.
Well,
I
yeah.
can't remember.
I mean, even the little things. It really shocked. It was really shocking. I mean, you don't expect these things to get to you because I mean, at the end of the day, it's what you're supposed to. It's what you're there for. But these things really get to you, and it did help me become a better person. I mean,
That's
punctuality is
true.
a really really good thing to have. Yeah.
So yeah, another thing kind of like glorified when it comes to going abroad or studying abroad is the fact that you get like a lot of independence, right? It's one of the most attractive selling, kind of like most attractive
Yeah.
selling points of actually going abroad. Like,
That's true.
Yeah.
when it comes to independence, there are a lot of pros as well as cons. Like,
Yeah.
when you talk about pros, you kind of have the freedom to do whatever you want. You can like go out whenever you want. You can come home whenever you want. You can basically eat what you want. If you want to eat like McDonald's 24/7, go for it. You have the freedom to do it, right?
Freedom.
But the
Yeah.
flip side of the coin is that you are kind of when you are independent, you also are responsible for certain things. Like that's something that not a lot of people talk about, because at the end of the day, when you're living alone, when you're independent, you kind of have to spend money on bills, you have to pay rent, you have to pay your insurance if it's applicable, you have to like buy groceries, you have to cook. So there's a lot of things that goes on when it comes to independence, right?
Yeah.
Nimesh, how was being independent for you in Japan?
I mean, it's a very very valid point you make there, Malika, because I think when you leave someone, so basically when you're leaving your family, you no longer have anyone who will hold you accountable, right?
Yeah.
So when you leave, I think you get a insane amount of freedom, and freedom and independence are completely different things,
Yeah.
right? With the freedom that you get, you can do whatever the hell you want, as Malika said, and I think I've done that to a certain extent as well until I learned that now this is something that I should.
Comes with a cost.
This is something that comes at a cost, and I've seen people on the flip side who basically took their independence for granted and just took it casually and didn't make it. Who basically had to
Go back.
leave. Yeah. So I was given a scholarship when I entered my university. I got a 65% scholarship, and I had to make sure those things like that. I had to make sure that I maintained a certain GPA and all of that. So I couldn't exploit my independence. I
So
had to be responsible. I made a promise to my mom, man. I made a promise to my mom, and that kept me in check.
yeah.
Because
It's important to keep in mind what actually drives you. In
yeah,
your case, your
yeah,
mom, right? So it's
yeah,
important you have those in your mind, because at the end of the day, there's only like a fine line between total independence and
self-destruction,
self-destruction.
Yeah.
100%.
You
Seeing
can
the
just
bigger
go
picture.
just go off the board in like one night, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
100%. You
and
can
and I
blow
think
off
like
like
if we
5
could
grand.
also like relate to it, I think like if you guys would like also agree with me, I think like there's a notion in every brown household where we try to seek this kind of independence. That's like our prime goal in life, where we want to be by ourselves, not be under any rules and regulations and things like that. But no one honestly going abroad realizes whatever is consequential as a result of this independence we acquire. And if you were to like talk about going to Australia and talk about the kind of independence you acquired, what was the price of it? Like, what did you actually learn from it? Or like, what was it like adapting to this kind of independence you get from your own brown household?
So you don't realize it until you come here and you have to do your daily chores. That's when things hit you really hard. Like I didn't know about washing like laundry until I came here, because my mom and my dad was doing it for me. Like your parents don't do laundry for you. Stop lying,
Perks of
man.
being the only
Right. The
child.
number of times my mom has
Also being
tried
the
to
only
teach
child.
me.
You
So
Colombo liberal.
Colombo liberals.
Ladies, only child, big house.
No, but this thing
Yeah.
thing about that is like you didn't know there was two types of laundry detergent. There is liquids and there's powder. There is something called fabric conditioner. I mean, like what?
What does that do?
It's like
Yeah.
conditioning your hair, but for the clothes,
All
basically.
right.
And
So if you want to make it smell
If I
good.
know correctly, I think it kind of like softens the
Yes,
clothes. I
yes.
think.
Yeah, apparently
Fabric
Yeah.
softener.
yeah,
So
Okay,
relaxes
I'm not.
the material for some reason. I didn't know
Okay.
this until I had to do it myself. And the best part about that was I was living with like 9 other people, and they were like in the same age group. And they were like, they didn't know what they were doing either. So we were like watching YouTube tutorials and like how to wash your clothes for
Oh,
beginners.
All
It was
community.
hilarious. Yeah,
How
I
it was
how
would
to
good.
learn
like
how to.
I would
what
like to
was
use
like
fabric
making
softener to relax my mind.
Yep.
Mood.
The
Big
mood.
mood.
that's a
Mood,
whole other
big mood.
podcast right
Big
there.
mood.
What was it like, like in terms of like the whole like cooking experience or like making your own food and like stuff like
Cooking
that?
experience. So as Malinka said, if you wanted, you can eat McDonald's for all 3 meals, right? But it comes with a cost. Your health's gonna go down, and you're gonna spend money. Like
It's gonna
Literal
hurt
it's
your
cost.
wallet.
much more profitable. Not profitable. It's much more cost effective to make your own food because one, you know what's going into it, so you know that the McDonald's worker spit's not in there. One.
Wow.
Oh my god.
I've worked at a
and
McDonald's.
and two and two that how much you're actually spending, so it's easier to budget all your amounts. So let's say you spend only like $5 for a whole day for all 3 meals.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
that's one of the most important aspects of living alone is the whole budgeting concept, right? Because obviously you have to make sure that your daily expenses matches your at the end of the day matches your monthly kind of like income, and there's
Yes.
a bit left for savings as well, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously when it comes to budgeting, if I'm speaking from a perspective where I'm still living in my parents' house, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't have to spend money on certain things like rent,
Yeah.
electricity, and food and things like that, unless I go out and eat. But the thing is, it's important to kind of like budget yourself regardless of where you live, because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
obviously you need to make sure that you don't overspend, you don't exceed the salary that you're getting, and you need to save a bit more as well
Yeah.
at the end of the month, every month, so that
Yeah,
you can
100%.
save up to a significant amount down the line, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's important that you kind of like take care of your expenses and you kind of don't over exceed and you don't overspend, right?
Just
Maybe
continuing
any
on that. Yeah,
thought?
continuing on that. So maintaining your daily expense limit. So for me personally, on my debit card, so I have like 2 bank accounts where I've got like my savings and my debit card, which is like which is your
Flex.
daily expense account. So you put like only about
Okay.
$100 into it, and then you see how long it takes you to deplete that $100. So, and the other point is, for example, when you're going shopping, you always stick to a list, and when you're on a budget, try to avoid things that are branded and they've got like a massive margin
Yeah.
attached to it. So salt is salt, right? So even if you buy like expensive salt, it's gonna be sodium chloride. If you buy the lower branded generic ones, it's still sodium chloride. The difference is about
Yeah.
$2.
I mean,
It's
we forget the fact that despite the fact that he's an accountant now, he
Did
used
bio
to do
for his
bio.
A-levels.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly,
that's
exactly.
crazy. Also, if I do use any jargons, please do excuse me.
So
Yeah, yeah.
another thing, Hivi, did you have kind of like an expense tracker that you had?
Yes. So I currently
Okay.
use something called Wallet.
It's an
That
app.
helps me track. Yeah,
That's
it is an app.
that's
Oh, okay.
It's
ah,
an
okay.
app.
I thought you were referring to your
So
actual wallet, which
yeah,
is
no,
what
no.
is
I just marry my bank account to the wallet, so I mimic the same thing, so I can see how much the actual spending is for each category, so we can
right.
categorize accordingly.
So you have to manually add data
Yes,
to your.
yes. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
it is cumbersome, but as an accountant, I froth at the mouth at things like that. So
Nice, vivid
I mean,
explanation
it
of
might be
it.
cumbersome, but at the end of the day,
you
that's
know how much
something that you
exactly you
have to
spend, right?
do. Yeah, something
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have to do, right? Yeah.
yeah. But living abroad, like when you have the freedom and when you're kind of stressed out, it is also very very easy to
Throw
just
money.
just go on an impulse. Yeah, go and do something impulsive and buy something that you absolutely do not need. I've done that, and I'm pretty
Oh,
sure I've also done, like I've gone out clubbing when I had absolutely little to no money, simply because I wanted to get drunk and just have a mom and dad, I'm really sorry,
And
but
we are not
if you're
promoting
listening,
alcohol. We
you're not,
please
you're not,
stay
you're
out
not,
of
you're not.
alcohol, kids. Do not drink.
Yeah, stay in school.
It's bad for your body. Stay at school.
Debatable, but
But yeah,
okay.
No. I mean, I've spent a ridiculous amount of money just going out partying and trying to have a good time, which you realize the next day how much
How,
damage you've done to
how
your
bad
Oh
wallet.
it
So
yeah.
is. Yeah.
it's so important, self-discipline,
Yep.
man,
Yep.
self-discipline, which I did
Honestly,
not have, which I did not have.
I also think like in terms of like going abroad, it's very easy to get caught up in that new experience which you're
Yeah,
looking for, right? Like in terms of like making new friends, they want to go out, you'll join them, and
exactly.
honestly, you lose complete sight
Yeah.
of like the budgeting aspect of it
Vinura,
or managing your finances.
yeah,
Yeah,
something I'd like to add is so there are different types of people in your university, right? You meet different types of people who come from very, very rich backgrounds and people who do not come from backgrounds such as those. But don't just make sure you know, like I what I tried to do was like towards the latter part of my university life, just try to understand where I come from and how hard my parents had to work to send me money and how hard I had to work to like earn my money, right?
Know
And
your
once you do
limits.
understand that, exactly, once you do understand that, we stop competing and we stop trying to catch up to people who basically can afford to spend money like that, lavishly.
The
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
basic.
that,
important.
I think the most important takeaway is stay in your financial
Yes.
lane.
yeah,
Always
Very
spend less than
important.
what you earn. That's in
yes,
accounting. That's the basic concept of saving money. That's it.
yeah,
That's a
Yeah.
bio
exactly.
student right there. Okay. Let's stay in your financial lane. Having said that, you two have been abroad. What's the most unnecessary thing you ever impulsively bought? No. Like
I don't
spill
want
the
to
tea.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're
All
doing
right, go
right
for it,
now.
Mashi.
Hivi, Nimesh, you start. What's the most unnecessary thing you've
Easy
actually bought? Because I'm pretty
350s.
sure so many people have done that already.
I've bought about $700 worth of FIFA points.
Oh my god, virtual
FIFA
points.
points.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, you sad boy.
Yo,
Okay,
it brought
no.
me
Still,
joy.
you go
It
ahead.
Yeah,
brought
that's
me
fine.
joy.
That's fine. I'm kidding. I'm messing with you. All right.
Hivi,
So
you
the
go
most
ahead.
ridiculous thing I bought is ski gear. Knowing that I'm not going skiing. So there's this place called Aldi that you can, and the middle aisle has the weirdest things you'll ever find. And they have like log splitters. They have drill bits. They've got ski gear. And one time I went in
I've
and I'm
had a
like,
party.
what am I gonna buy? Oh, ski gear for sure. I'm definitely going skiing. And the next
Have you ever
and
gone skiing?
and that next month, I actually twisted my ankle and couldn't go skiing. So that's how it works.
Oh no.
And
So
I
here
have
we go.
like,
Like Malink and I are back in Sri Lanka. If we had to pick between the two of you, Heavy, as much as you laughed at Nimesh, we will still go with Nimesh's like
yeah,
virtual points because
I know.
I don't know what you were thinking.
Yeah. I can't go skiing because I have a broken knee. So I'm
Oh my
going
god,
with
we are
Nimesh and
broken
Rasa.
children, aren't we?
Yeah,
You're
and
broken
like
people, like physically and mentally.
how did how did we jump from a broken knee to
it's
That's how
broken
it
that
knee?
whole
is, man.
therapy thing we always
That's how
keep
it
coming to.
is.
There's some
Yeah.
point where we all.
I mean,
I think
the
there's also
yeah.
like a lot of like occupational aspect also that goes into this. Don't you think, Malink?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of occupational stigma going around. So this is mainly applicable when you're kind of like in the university itself, because
Yeah.
when you're in university, you don't have like the hours or the freedom to actually do like a full-time job, right? So you end up doing certain part-time jobs. Could be a restaurant waiter, could be a hotel waiter, could be a McDonald's cashier, things like that, right? So there's a lot of occupational stigma that goes around when it comes to these kinds of jobs. It's especially prevalent in like South Asian markets. I
Yeah,
don't
no
think
one
it's
really cares.
yeah, exactly, right? So what kind of things do you think we need to do to kind of like get rid of these occupational stigma?
Yeah, before I get into that, I'll list out some of the jobs that I've done. I've flipped burgers in McDonald's. I've been a waiter. I've cleaned hot water onsens. That's what you call it in Japan. So I've done all sorts of
Hot water
jobs.
nonsense. What the heck?
Uh,
It's like a hot water bath sort of thing.
Ah, right, okay, yep.
Right, I've cleaned those as well. I mean, I've done all sorts of jobs. But what? So I remember when I was interviewing for a job, I went into a hotel for a job as a waiter, and I was walking down the hallway for my interview, and there were rooms to either side of me, and I was thinking to myself, "Holy shit! Like these were the kind of places I used to come to with my parents when I was in Sri Lanka," and that really got to me, and I ended up leaving the interview. But then a couple of months down the line, I kind of realized that everybody was doing it. It was normal because everybody needed money, and if you wanted money, you had to work. And it was even the Japanese people, even the people who were rich as hell, they worked
That's
because
the thing.
if they yeah, because that goes a long way in feeling strong.
Like
Yeah.
kids here, like in Australia, they start work at 17 or 16, like as young as
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
have special rates from given by the government, so the company has to pay them this amount. So
Right.
it's fair for them, and they have spending
Yeah,
money, so they're not dependent on their parents to spend their pocket money. They earn it themselves, not like an
yeah, yeah,
allowance
yeah.
So
thing.
it's kind of important to break the stigma, because at the end of the day,
It is.
they're living there and we're living here. And when we're living here, we have to take care of ourselves, and we need to earn money, doing whatever we can to kind of like survive and cover your daily expenses. So it's important to kind of like break the stigma,
That's
and
correct.
kind of like don't really care about what they think, because at the end of the day, you are living here and you're studying and you're working and you kind of
100%.
making a name for yourself and
That's correct.
kind of building your skills. And as Marshall mentioned, you learn like a lot of skills when you actually do work in
Oh
those
yeah,
kinds of places, right? So you kind of appreciate the fact that you have a job at the end of the day, because then that kind of uh, gives you money to eat
It's
whatever you want and
yeah.
kind of
Sustain yourself,
yeah.
right?
I
yeah,
It's
mean,
more
exactly.
yeah.
the
Go for it.
the fact of the matter is, when even when you work at, like, even if it's in Sri Lanka, I think you're earning money. You're doing it for yourself,
Yeah.
and yeah, it helps you have a financial independence, which is a very important thing to people our age.
The thing
So
Yeah.
if
is,
you feel like,
the difference is in Sri Lanka you work, but you still live in your parents' house, so you have, just in case, you have a place to go and you have food to eat. But here, if you don't work, who's gonna give you food, mate?
True.
That's what it
Yeah.
is.
And I think that's very important, because you need to do away with this stigma, because at the end of the day, if there's one thing this pandemic also has taught you, is the fact that you need to not like take these things for
yeah,
granted. Like
yeah,
sometimes you need to
100%.
To
really
appreciate.
appreciate
Yeah.
whatever it is this occupation is that like helps you put some food on the table, that helps you sustain yourself. And if you are someone that's ever at any point contemplating going abroad, you can't go with this kind of stigma, because you need to
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
really
you
make
can't.
sure you go through anything that like whatever means necessary to help yourself sustain yourself, right?
Keep your brown,
Having
what do you call it, pride out of
Brownness.
the, yeah, brown
Pride.
pride
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah.
door when you come here. Or
right, this curry
and
mentality is
yeah,
not
curry
You know,
possible at
mentality.
work.
boys, but the thing is, there were people in my university who did not have to work a day, right?
True, and I
And
think that the point is like, for example, exactly, Masha. I think
yeah,
there's a post-university occupational crisis also, right? For
oh,
example, which
yeah,
like people really grow through. For example, sometimes the hustle is essential. Like your degree sometimes might not even help you guys, and I think like Nimesh could actually like expound on that a little bit more.
yeah. I mean, the struggle was real, to be very
Yeah.
honest. Because in university we were advised to finish our credits off by like the second semester of third year, so we had an entire semester and we could dedicate ourselves to job hunt, right? And
Yeah.
it because that's how long it took. I was one of the lucky. I mean, I'm still, my friends still call me like the luckiest dude to have ever gotten a job in Japan, because I did it in my first ever interview. But there are people who've had to sit for 50 plus interviews to get one job offer. Because at the end of the day, no matter how good your Japanese is, no matter how accustomed to the culture you are, you're still an outsider,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It,
So
there is a
yeah,
challenge. Yeah.
was the interview in Japanese or English?
My first interview was in Japanese.
Oh my
Oh.
goodness.
Oh, that must
I
have been
was,
fun.
it was not
Also,
fun.
when it comes to Australia, there's like a lot of visa restrictions, so you can't really
All
find,
right.
because a lot of jobs would ask
Oh.
for people who are either permanent residents or citizens. So if you're a
Oh.
postgraduate, they would not take you as per visa requirements. They can't, the employer
Yeah.
can't take you in because it's
Yeah.
legally not allowed.
Would we
Yeah. But
also use this as a point to like reiterate the importance of research per se? You know, like
Yes,
Yeah.
very
what
much.
oh,
actually like
100%,
helps you
100%.
like sustain
That's why you have
yourself,
to have
right?
contingency plans always. If this job
Um,
doesn't work,
Yeah.
you need to have another one.
yeah. One thing I'd advise people, not advice. I mean, one thing I did myself when I was doing job hunting and all of that. People around you, your seniors, they know so much about the whole process and everything. Just talk to them. Just listen to whatever advice they have to give. I mean, even more than people at like job agencies and whatnot, these people have actually been there, done it, and gone through it. For
That's
anyone who's
great.
struggling with stuff like this, just talk to people around you. I think that could really help. Because I remember, I spoke to one of my seniors before my job interview, and everything he said was asked. at the interview, and that really, yeah, almost everything. Well, that really helps. So for anyone who's going through a similar situation, just talk to your seniors and get all the help you need. There's no shame in that.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's definitely
there's no
not.
shame in asking help, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah, because having a support system is so important.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think having said that, I think one of the most important things that we definitely have to touch on is the health aspect. It could be mental,
100%.
physical. I think we definitely need to get onto it.
Yeah. Yeah. To get onto it, I remember. So basically, if you were sick, because I was someone. I'm sure he was the same. I was someone who had to work part time to find my tuition fee, to find my living expenses and my rent. So I had to work quite a bit in Japan after my uni. So basically, if you were sick for some reason and you couldn't go to work, it meant that there was no food on the table for you the next day, right? So that was the, yeah. And even though, and to add to that, even though I was under a 70% deduction of, because of a health insurance that was that I had,
Subsidized. Yep.
pretty much, it was still crazy expensive, because I remember I had a cut on my finger which is quite bad, and I went to the hospital, and it was still going to cost me around 45,000 Sri Lankan rupees to get with the 70% deduction.
Damn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I to be very honest, I've never gone to the hospital.
That's
It's a bit different in Australia because
That's
they
true.
have
That's true.
compulsory health insurance that the moment you come here, there's like something called the overseas health insurance that you have to
Right.
prepay for the whole
Okay.
stay that you are here.
I think the
But
logistics
after,
Malink also mentioned initially.
but yeah, so you need to research about the insurance providers and stuff like that.
Right.
Very
True.
important because you have to price compare and
Right.
get the best benefits, the excesses, all the stuff. You don't realize these when you're in Sri Lanka because health insurance is not like
Honestly,
a big
one of the
thing.
best things about Sri Lanka, I think, for the longest time, right now, even while we're dealing with COVID, is the free healthcare system that we have. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't know how we budget out for it, but it's amazing. It's honestly a blessing in disguise, which I don't think we actually realize.
No, Vinod,
But
so there was
if-
one year where I did so much overtime, I had to pay around 15,000 Sri Lankan rupees per month for my health insurance.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
so for someone who's never been to the hospital to get any sort of treatment done,
It seems absurd.
15,000 per
It seems
month.
absurd. Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's something that you have to do at the end of the day.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
it's important.
yeah.
that
You
That's-
can't run
you
away
never
from it. You
know
have
it.
to
Yeah,
do
that's
never
what-
know what
Yeah, that's
So
the-
here's the thing.
yeah.
Here's the thing. It's very tricky, because so if you have 15,000 rupees that you have to pay every month, you have to work even more to make that, and then you
It's
end
just a
up paying
continuous
even
loop.
more the next month.
So here's me buying like the carrots and the leeks that I need for like my lunch.
Yeah.
But like, there's health insurance.
Yeah, there's more on the
I mean,
plate now.
it's essential. That's true.
No
But I
carrot.
think I think we're also talking about like the physical aspect of it. I think something that honestly, even I've noticed where like some of my friends also like have like come back to Sri Lanka, especially when they went abroad, is the fact that they were completely unable, and like for their, it's very unfortunate, the fact that they were unable to deal with the mental health, with their own mental well-being, the mental health aspect of it. And I think that's something which people barely and rarely talk about, right? Like the whole aspect where like you go abroad and whatever you have to deal with, and that really takes a toll on your own mental well-being. I definitely think we need to talk about that.
Yeah, so with
Yeah.
mental health, that's so important. Just being in another country, and so when you go to another country, you lose connection with other people that you've had in Sri Lanka or wherever you came from, and maintaining sustainable and proper relationships with people, your friends. And I really want to thank you three guys for always being there for me and just listening to all the rambling and the mumbo jumbo that comes out of my mouth without
Yeah,
judging
so-
me. That's so important.
Yeah, especially when I'm guessing when you're living alone and you need to establish like a proper support system, and you need to establish roots. Like as Marsha mentioned earlier, when he had to work overtime to pay his insurance, like that must have taken a huge mental toll, because at the end of the day, he's thinking, why am I paying this? Because at the end of the day, he's kind of like not even using it.
Yeah.
That thought must have crossed your mind, mate.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, right?
yeah.
So it's important to stay connected. It's important to kind of build relationships online, like through your friends, or even could be like dating apps. I don't know. So
Could be.
I mean, yeah.
One thing
So-
I did, Malinka, I think it's so important to have someone you can talk to outside of your network. outside of people you meet every day, you see every day.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
So I mean, if you take this instance, like
yeah,
the four of us got really close
yeah,
during the pandemic only, right? Like I've
yeah,
known Nimesh and Vinura for like 8 7 8 years, but I've known Hivi for like 15
My
16
God.
years, right?
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
grade
Since
2 or 3.
diapers.
Yeah, basically. So even the four of us, we got really close during the pandemic because one day one of us decided to take a video call, and then the four of us got close. We started playing
Mm,
online games, like
And a
mm.
online
podcast
games,
now.
and now we're
Doing
doing a
a
podcast. So it's
podcast.
important to stay connected. It's important
Yeah,
to stay connected to your friends.
100%.
So and who knows, maybe you start a podcast next month. You never know,
You
right?
never know.
So yeah, so it's important to stay connected. And if you ever feel the need to reach out to someone, do reach out to your friends. Or if you think you need like professional help, do reach out, because
Also,
obviously,
with
yeah,
that, I just want to mention Beyond Blue, which is an Australian organization that helps with mental health for men. Because apparently, suicide rate for men has increased massively within the last 10 years. So it's important to talk about men's health too. But I will link the number for Beyond Blue on the bottom of the description. So anyone who
That's
wants to
super
reach
helpful.
out
Like,
can reach out, and they are very
yeah,
helpful. They don't
Yeah,
sponsor this podcast or anything, but I want them to sponsor because it's more of a
yeah,
community thing I want to do.
absolutely.
Yeah,
yeah. But
yeah,
no, I mean, if you have absolutely nobody that you want to talk to, I mean, we are
just
bloody
talk to me.
strangers. We know that, but just talk to us. Just
yeah,
drop us a message to our Instagram page, and
yeah,
we'll talk to you. I mean, we
yeah,
might not help you. We're not geniuses, or
yeah.
like we're not professionals, but we'll talk to you. We'll
Because
talk
at
you
the end of
through
the
it.
day, you just need someone to vent to, right?
Yeah,
You just need
exactly.
someone
Yeah,
to talk to. So it's important to like
yeah,
reach out. It's important to talk to your friends, and like Marsha mentioned, if you have absolutely no one to talk to, just drop a
yeah.
message to us. We'll have a
It's
chat.
more about being able to talk about things than actually wanting help.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The
The
first
first
step
step
is
is
realizing.
actually, yeah, realizing
and
that you
and I
need to
also think like
talk.
that's exactly why we're doing this, right? To get super real, because I don't think people have a platform to feel or like to have something this relatable to
And
what they're actually
vulnerable.
going through. And like if you are going through this kind of thing, then this is the thing for you. And like, like you're not alone, essentially.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
yeah,
difficult
yeah.
for
I
everybody.
mean,
It's
we
it's
hope we hope you drop your friends abroad a text and like, hey man, how's it
Yeah, just
going?
just
yeah,
randomly,
yeah,
just message.
Yeah, just do it. I mean,
yeah,
and in equal sense, vice versa.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
take the
One thing,
initiative. That's it.
yeah, one thing I've learned though, being abroad, is so we've had to deal with a lot of things on our plate, right? And initially, I mean, I'm being very frank here. I've thought that the people in Sri Lanka, the stuff that they go through is not as crazy as the stuff that I'm going through, and that's as wrong as I've been in my entire life.
yeah.
So
Everyone's going through struggles at the end of the day.
because
You
I
everybody
can't
think
compare the
everybody
problems
is
are
struggle.
relative, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
relative,
relative to like your
exactly,
circumstances,
and
and
I'm,
that's
I'm
okay.
very sorry to have ever thought that,
yeah.
but to who, yeah, I'm honestly sorry, but that's something that I've come to understand through my experiences. I think we need to support each other no matter where we are
Yeah,
and who we are, and yeah, and
Your pains
yeah,
compared to mine. That comparing pain is like different. Like it's not good because
yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
what
not.
yeah,
you
yeah,
feel
Yeah,
and what I feel might be totally different, even if it's the
100%,
same situation.
100%,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. Okay, so Nimesh, I have a question.
Oh,
Looking back at the past 5 6 years that you've been living alone abroad,
yeah.
do you have any regrets?
Oof, putting me on the spot there, buddy.
I think both of them,
Regrets.
right? Like at this point,
Yeah,
yeah.
Regrets. I wouldn't say I regret coming here. But what I would like to say, because I do believe that studying abroad is like the best way of changing the way we look at the world and we look at different things. So in that sense, I do not have regrets about coming to Japan and studying here. But one thing I'd say is, as someone who was studying at RI, who was spending a lot of my father's money, I took things for granted like crazy. The support system that I had, the fact that my father dropped me off at school, my father dropped me off in front of the university every day, picked me up, and all of that. I took all of that for granted. So one thing I'd say, as someone who's studying abroad, who's been through a heck of a lot, as just like all of us, man, I wouldn't take those things for granted. I think
Yeah,
those things. Yeah,
getting what you mean.
that's
Like,
one thing.
so as the saying goes, there's a difference between the kottamal you make and the kottamal that your mom makes because it hits
Very
differently.
true. Very true.
yeah,
Very
yeah.
true.
True, true, true.
I guess like at the end of the day, in conclusion, it's important for everyone. If you're watching this, if you're in Sri Lanka and you're planning on going abroad, or if you're living abroad and you can relate to these experiences, know that look, there's a million good things about studying abroad, but there's also a flip side to it, and I think that's what we also rightfully wanted to point out. If you're still back in Sri Lanka, like there's so many positive aspects about Sri Lanka as well. Your it's a big safety net. Your family, your loved ones, all like around you. They've got your back. They're here for you. And similarly, I think like
Make use of them,
what
exploit
Malika,
those.
Dinesh, and right, not exploit
I
it
don't even.
essentially, but true.
No, no. I meant it in the best way possible. You know what I meant.
Yeah. As you guys can notice, as you guys can notice, there's a bit of a color difference, and he has lost it because we had to re-record this final bit because he kind of messed up the audio.
Audio.
Guys.
So yeah,
Yeah, this is what happens when you go to Australia by boat. Like, don't do that shit.
yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
Sponsored by Scott
It is-
Morrison. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
it is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah.
But I guess
Is
at the end of
what
the day,
is.
don't take anything for granted. Wherever you are, in whatever situation you are in life, appreciate what you have. And if you hustle, it's bound to work, and you will.
Yeah. Wherever you are, whatever you do, whenever it is. And then
See.
one thing I'd like to add is hopefully this sort of works as a platform or an opportunity for those who haven't really addressed the issues, or who would like to reach out to friends abroad or just friends in Sri Lanka and start up these conversations. We hope that's what at the end of the day happens through these podcasts. And
Yeah, exactly. Making awareness and
And I guess
connecting people.
that's it then. And the tea has been spilled.
Yes.
yeah, plenty
Alright.
out.
Peace.
Yeah, plenty.
Peace.
Hope you
Out
enjoyed this.
to